D23 is officially in our rear view mirror. Welcome back to Gotta Go Orlando Construction Report, your weekly look behind the construction walls at the theme parks and attractions of Central Florida. I'm Shane, and last week Disney Imagineering showed us the future. We saw Piston Peak National Park. We finally learned what's coming to Villains Land. We got new details on Tropical Americas and the Indiana Jones attraction. We saw Monstropolis taking shape, and Disney announced some pretty major changes coming to Epcot and Animal Kingdom. But here's the thing, announcements are one thing, construction is another. So this week we're checking out what's actually happening here in Florida, what has changed, what is rising, what's still underground, and which projects is about to hit the next major milestone. And that's not all. Universal Orlando has also been moving at an incredible pace. Halloween Horror Nights is here, Fast and the Furious Hollywood Drift is taking over the old Rip Ride Rockit site, and there are plenty of developments at SeaWorld Orlando and Busch Gardens Tampa Bay that deserve a spot in this week's report. So grab your hard hat, because we're heading back behind the walls. Let's begin at the Magic Kingdom, and after everything we saw at D23 last weekend, there is no better place to start than Piston Peak National Park. At D23, Disney gave us a spectacular 19 by 19 foot model showing exactly what this new section of Frontierland is supposed to become: mountains, waterfalls, rivers, geysers, forests, and of course cars. Disney's official description says Piston Peak will build on Frontierland's National Park storytelling with a Rocky Mountain inspired environment and 2-car attractions. But now let's get back to Florida. That massive tower crane is still waiting to move to real vertical installation. We still have the base section in place, but nothing else has happened with the installation as yet. For months, Piston Peak was primarily about moving dirt, installing drainage, building retaining walls, and preparing the site. Currently, the site is being graded in the areas where the drainage systems have already been installed below the dirt. We are now waiting for the connection of this site to the Villains Land drainage, which is also currently being installed. Once this connection is complete and the 2 new retention ponds at the back of the Magic Kingdom are connected, this will hopefully complete the water management aspect of the 2 projects. This should resolve and prevent future flooding of the new and existing areas, as we discussed in our last construction updates. This is a crucial part of the project. Just before I continue, a big massive thank you to BioReconstruct for providing the photos to make this video. You can find him on YouTube and X, and he's also one of our suggested channels. And just so you know, I'm working on the voted Piston Peak full site deep dive as we speak, so keep your eyes peeled for that video dropping. Over at Villains Land right now, we're still watching infrastructure and site preparation, and this is one of those projects where the most important work isn't necessarily the most exciting to look at. It's utilities and drainage. As I mentioned earlier, once this section of construction is complete and all the connections are made, this site will begin to progress. However, we are still some time away from this. Currently, we are witnessing that the drainage materials are being stored in zones around this site instead of one big pile of material. This is for ease of access, organisation of what needs to go where, and order of installation. Basically, Villains Land is a laydown yard at this point. Over at Disney's Animal Kingdom, the Tropical Americas, the Indiana Jones attraction, work has continued adding metal chips for the temple facade. Also, we have now seen over at the testing area the entrance of the temple with its detailing such as the serpent warning carved into the rockwork. The Encanto building is still receiving its metal chips, which are there to disguise the square show building beneath. These chips are which the rock-like rendering will be applied to, creating a mountain-like facade theming of Antonio's Fiesta de Encanto. Once all these chips are installed, work will move on to rendering, slowly pushing back the show building into the tropical landscape. At the front of the attraction, the casita steel structure is continuing to rise and now is visible from outside the land over the construction walls. Also on the surrounding smaller buildings, the timber framing for the roofing continues, and also the roofing continues on the carousel of the little animals. Over at the second entrance / exit of Tropical Americas, the first rendering theming has arrived in the form of an old cobblestone wall posts with broken plaster effect. It also has the area signing which has been carved into the rendering stating Tropical Americas. Once these posts are completed, they will most likely see paint detailing, then they'll be wrapped for protection. The rest of the site is receiving grading work and the installation of utilities such as conduit and drainage. Over at the store and dining locations, work continues with roofing, damp proofing, battening, and once all of this is completed, the final roof tiles will be added. In the dining location, a facade wall has been installed and is waiting for any first fix electrics for lighting. Then it will be drywalled and rendered. Internally of both spaces, the restaurant will be getting fitted out with new kitchen, new dining space, and theming to link the areas together. The same process will be happening with the store. If you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to smash subscribe, and if you're watching on TV, all you have to do is scroll up on your remote and the subscribe button's just below the play line. It really does help the channel grow. Or you can scan the QR on screen right now. You can also follow us on Instagram for the latest news, guides, tips, tricks, and what's going on here in Orlando, Florida. And if you don't have Instagram, we're also on Facebook and X. And we also have our very own website that covers everything that's happening inside the parks and outside the parks. Just search Gotta Go Orlando. Over at Disney's Hollywood Studios, Monstropolis, let's start with the Doors coaster. This is Disney's first ever suspended coaster, where guests will be hanging beneath the track while racing through the chaotic Monsters Inc. factory. And the more steel that goes into place, the easier it becomes to see the scale of what Disney is building. Recently, we have seen track segments arrive on site and being staged off-site. Construction continues on wrapping what is being installed with the building, and Disney is doing their very best at hiding as much as possible from sight. But there is another reason why I'm excited about this project. It's not just a coaster. Disney is building an entire Monstropolis, and this site has truly begun to accelerate and transform. We are witnessing the construction of facades, and the details on the buildings are gradually taking shape. And this week, the Globe Theatre clock tower was unearthed from the scaffolding, revealing a functioning clock and intricate new brick and stonework detailing. The restaurants, retail, entertainment, the city itself is taking shape, and this area is definitely going to move up a gear, especially with a 2027 opening. Disney has also confirmed the land will include experiences such as Welcome to Monstropolis, Archie's Scare Pig Pizza, Harryhausen's, and Scareaporium. So eventually all of that steel we're seeing today will disappear behind a fully themed city. Moving over to the boardwalk, the new hurly-burly venue work continues. On the facade of the building, with a new blue paintwork and what looks to be new refreshed canopy structures over the doorway and windows. Okay, if you thought Disney has been busy, let's move over to what's happening at Universal. Universal has some pretty impressive projects of its own, and one of the biggest construction projects at Universal Studios Florida has just reached a major milestone. The track is in place, the layout is complete, so let's head straight over to the former Hollywood Rip Ride Rockit site, because Fast and the Furious Hollywood Drift is looking like a real roller coaster. Over the first half of this year, crews have been really busy installing the final pieces of the coaster track, completing the full layout. That means the massive 170-foot spike is now connected. The huge inversion is complete. The track is running through the full site, and we can now finally follow the entire journey from station all the way towards CityWalk and back again. But there has been a few issues along the way. As we reported last week, there were some structural elements that needed to be reconfigured in regards to the connections between the coaster track and supports, which has now been completed. Steel was cut, new supports were re-welded on and are now awaiting repaint. Also, one of the foundation pads needed to be moved and reconfigured, which has also been completed. Universal has now installed a massive semi-truck set piece beside the coaster in what we're collectively referring to as Scene 1. Orlando appears to be quite different to the Hollywood version of this attraction. While Hollywood's version of this coaster is receiving more soundproofing and walls, Orlando is at least getting a show scene at the beginning of the attraction, and this isn't just random theming. The truck is positioned beside the opening scene structure near the station, where the attraction's story will begin. Also, we're seeing a lot of structural steel work being installed in this area, which in the future will be all enclosed in. We can also note that all the launch fins have now been covered over to protect from on-site construction, and recently the drive wheels have been installed heading into the station, and a measuring device has been used to calibrate the depth. So we are moving beyond a bunch of coaster track and starting to see the actual Fast and the Furious attraction. And there's another Fast and the Furious story we need to mention this week, because while Hollywood Drift is being built, the original Fast and the Furious Supercharge attraction has now officially closed. The attraction's final day was on August the 16th, with Universal closing it permanently on August the 17th. And that means that Universal Studios Florida has officially moved on from the old Fast and the Furious attraction, one Fast and Furious experience gone, and the new one is literally being built right next to the park's skyline. But Universal isn't just building for 2027, they're also building for next week, because Halloween Horror Nights 35 opens on August the 28th. Universal's 35th anniversary event runs on select nights from August the 28th through to November the 1st, 2026. Right now, cast member previews are running and the final tweaks will be getting made. So if you don't want any spoilers, I would turn off the internet, lock yourself up at home, as it's everywhere. Also this week, the Men in Black alien attack has returned with several new ride vehicles that have had new and improved laser zappers, which means higher scoring for guests riding. We're not yet sure if the rest of the ride vehicles will be converted over time, now that several of the ride vehicles have been updated. Over in CityWalk, it's looking increasingly very unlikely that this year's 35th anniversary HHN will be getting a medallion, as scaffolding and scrims continue to rise around the archway. But we do have some purple and red stripe projections. Construction is still continuing for Luke Combs' Category 10 bar. We are now seeing the site being lifted and levelled out, ready for utilities and conduit to be installed before wooden forms are fitted into the ground for the foundation plate to be poured. Over in Islands of Adventure, the demolition process of the Lost Continent is slowly beginning to wrap up. Poseidon's Fury is all but a hole in the ground. Sinbad's Theatre is now gone, and sand has been delivered to the site for grading. We've also spotted drainage material on site. Site cabins and new cabins have been situated for the temporary first aid location, ready for the existing ones to be demolished. And work has started around the Mythos restaurant, with an area being cleared at the side and a new walkway has been installed closer to the restaurant, bypassing the cleared areas. And finally, for Universal, let's jump over to Epic Universe, because here's the thing about Universal. They didn't just build Epic Universe, they built a resort with room to grow, and we're continuing to watch permit activity and the future expansion areas around the resort. In our news report last week, we spoke about permits being filed for Dark Universe and the Ministry of Magic. Well, this week has seen some movement over at the expansion area of Dark Universe. We are witnessing berms being removed and some groundworks beginning in the area, and skips arriving on site. This is massive news. It means the expansion is going ahead. I guess we'll just have to keep our eye on Ministry of Magic and its expansion. Now let's head over to SeaWorld Orlando. And while we're not seeing a brand new coaster rising into the skyline this week, there is something happening here that is just as important for the next few months. SeaWorld is starting to transform for Halloween, and if you think Universal has the monopoly on Halloween, SeaWorld would like a word. Howl-O-Scream returns to SeaWorld Orlando on select nights from September the 11th through to October the 31st, and this year's event is getting seriously overhauled. SeaWorld is promising 5 new haunted houses, including 4 completely new storylines, plus 6 scare zones, 4 of which are brand new. SeaWorld has already revealed several of this year's new haunted houses. We got the Dark Net, the Crawl Space, Everything Must Stay, but we're still waiting on more details to be revealed. And then there's the one that caught my attention. I know what you did last summer, the Final Catch, but I'm already working on an independent video all about Howl-O-Scream SeaWorld Orlando, so remember to hit that notification bell so you stay up to date with all our uploads. And our final stop this week is over at Busch Gardens Tampa Bay, and if you're a Busch Gardens Tampa fan, this is a pretty important time for the park, because one of the most recognizable roller coasters in Tampa has come to the end of its life, and something new is already waiting in the wings. After more than 3 decades of roaring through the Congo section of Busch Gardens, Kumba is officially gone. The legendary B&M coaster closed permanently earlier this month, ending its run as one of the most iconic coasters in Florida. And if you've ever ridden Kumba, you know this wasn't exactly a gentle goodbye. They really don't build them like this anymore. 7 inversions, that massive vertical loop, the dive loop, cobra roll, and that unmistakable roar that could probably be heard from Tampa International Airport. Okay, maybe a slight exaggeration, but you get my point, is now gone. But Busch Gardens isn't simply leaving the area empty. The park has already announced that Kumba's Revenge will take over the site, and this is where our construction coverage is going to get very interesting. Right now, we are in an awkward stage where the old attraction is supposedly disappearing, and I say this because we really don't know what is going to happen with this project. Is it going, or is it going to be reimagined with a new track and possibly a new ride vehicle, such as a stand-up version? We just don't know. The new attraction hasn't yet been revealed, and that's exactly the type of construction story I love to follow, because over the next few months we're going to be watching for what gets demolished, what gets reused, where do new foundations appear, and perhaps most importantly, what kind of experience Busch Gardens is planning to put here. Also, this week has seen the return of a water ride to the park. Yes, Congo River Rapids has reopened, which for me is so important for Busch Gardens Tampa. This park needed a water attraction as it really gets hot here, and after Stanley Falls Flume closed, it was really noticeable not having that water attraction. Also in the demolition site area of Stanley Falls Flume, workers picked up with the removal of the station building platform and queuing area. All we know at this point is the project name for this area, which is called Project Driftwood. We don't know what type of ride this will be or what style of attraction will be built. All we can really guess is it could potentially be a water-based ride. It's also rumoured that we will be getting a full announcement next month on what will be taking over this spot, and we'll keep you updated on our weekly news right here. But there is one more thing I want to keep on our radar. Busch Gardens Tampa Bay is currently in the middle of a much larger investment program, reported at around $100 million, involving new animal habitats and other improvements around the park. And that's important for us because it means Cumber's Revenge isn't necessarily an isolated project. The park is continuing to evolve across multiple areas, and we can't wait to see what's going to happen over the next several years. And that's another week behind the construction walls here in Orlando, Florida. This week we've been to Walt Disney World, Universal Orlando, SeaWorld Orlando and Busch Gardens Tampa Bay, and we have had a whole lot of construction news in between. But the really exciting part is we're only just getting started. The future of Disney is rising in front of our eyes. Universal is building its next generation of attractions, and every week those construction sites are changing. So if you want to follow along as all of this comes to life, make sure to subscribe to Gotta Go Orlando and turn on those notification bells, and let us and our followers know your thoughts about all these construction projects. Hey, thank you for watching this video right to the end. We hope you've enjoyed it, and if so, please don't forget to check out this video right here that YouTube has picked out for you. You can also follow us on these social media platforms right here to stay up to date with what's happening here in Orlando, Florida. Now get out there and go and make some memories. Bye YouTube!